So we just wait for a few 2 seconds, unless you guys want to just start already. It's all up to you.
Yeah, let's get running. Let's get going.
Okay, let's see. I have the slides set up. Let me share my screen for it.
I have the video
there.
up. I just have to be in. I already have the screen set up for my thing. Just.
Yeah. All right then. Let's get this. Let's get this started then.
Okay. So like, how exactly do we do? So like
it's a normal practice pitch. Like how you guys gonna introduce it to the team. It's like that.
All right, bringing it then.
Oh, I see this. Oh. Oh, I see the stream.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Wait, hold on a minute. Just to be sure, because I see the stream live.
Alright. Now, cassette. Now, knowing that I am moving the slides down, just notify me when to move the slide.
Okay, so okay, so all right, so this is my this is me. So this is from Jack of All Trades and Swag 23. Our pitch for Sumire Yoshizawa versus Hibiki Tachibana.
This is primarily my pitch, but I couldn't help but ask for help from Swag here.
Hello.
And believe me, he managed to put all this together. I really couldn't have done it without him.
More than a week. It was tough, but I managed.
And I appreciate that.
Okay, now move to the next slide.
Okay, next slide. So
yeah.
So the video is a little bit delayed, but I will notify you that the screen it has been moved.
Right then.
Okay. Alright, so okay, just gonna wait for the stream to catch up. Should be. Oh yeah. These are just okay. I made some like quick art for these. Quick art for this. And like this is what. And here's a start. Move to the next slide.
Okay, next slide.
Play. It's ready.
Entering our center stage performance, Hibiki. It's showtime for the Violet.
And of course, I made some preview TNs a while back when this was like an ongoing trend in multiple servers. It was a fun time. Okay, it's got up. Let me see. To here. Oh, now we get to. This part. Now we get to the backgrounds.
Okay.
Now, obviously, this community is very well acquainted with Persona as a series and its many characters. But let's just get a quick rundown on Sumire first.
All right, next slide.
Next slide.
Just waiting for the stream to catch up a bit. Alright, so out first, I would like to give a special shout out for Strange Fate, very cool friend, for making these. These look absolutely amazing and stellar. Alright, and next slide. So first, sorry, just like... So first, you might not think too much of Kasumi at first. Again, she's just your regular gymnast, is a Shujin honors student, might seem very regular and normal, and of course, but later on when she encounters Joker and the others, she awakens to her persona, Cendrillon, and she's associated with the Faith Arcana. She's an expert gymnast, likes improving herself, and of course like Joker. Okay, next slide. Okay. Then we get to something else.
The true background.
Yep. turns out she's not exactly the person that we've come to know as turns out all along she was her sister Sumire. The real Kasumi sadly died while trying to protect her sister from a car. And that didn't exactly sit well with the surviving Sumire, who didn't feel like she deserved to live, especially considering how successful Kasumi was in comparison.
Yep. But ultimately, despite some serious amounts of trouble that came with it, you know, with everything related to Marky, Akechi's survival, kind of, and of course, Marky's new reality, she decided to ultimately step up to her dream, decided to live for what she believes in. And next slide.
Okay. Arsenal and abilities.
This ended up being the true awakening for Sumire to her persona Cendrillon, who mostly attacks via bless attacks, which is kind of like light, and that she's not afraid to get up close with rapiers or shoot from distance with her rifles.
Her special traits require her more so like ranged and physical attacks, with her special trait being that she's more so elegant with how she does her performances. And her personas go from Cendrillon to Vanadis to Ella to blessed skills including Koga and Makaugon to physical skills including Tempest Slash, Warple Blade, Sword Dance, and her strongest move, Masquerade. And her passive skills help her with like extra stuff like being able to dodge better and giving her extra steps. And now we've got Sumire done. Let's move on to her
opponent.
Let's move on to Hibiki and what she is about. Next slide.
Okay, I gotta say I really like these backgrounds Strange Fate made.
I know.
Yeah, very much thank him a lot for this. And next slide to her background.
Okay, it is readied.
Okay, so Hibiki was just your average girl. I don't know. So Hibiki was just your average girl. So like on the day of the Zweiwing concert, well, you know, turns out things didn't go exactly as nicely as planned, considering, well, let's say these monsters called Noise showed up and pretty much ruined everything. So then we get to meet the likes of Tsubasa and Kanade, the wielder of the Symphogear relics, which basically is I'll get to it when we get to her abilities, but in basic terms, these allow her to fight the shadows, considering at a normal touch, they can kill people. And during the midst of the concert incident, Hibiki got caught up in the crossfire, accidentally had and when Kanade was trying to defend her, a piece of her relic, known as Gungnir, and a shard flew directly into Hibiki's chest. So Kanade gave her one line to remember: "Don't give up on life." And that was the moment Kanade gave up her life to protect Hibiki.
She ended up practically being the only notable survivor of a large massacre. Many people, including Kanade, were killed in the ensuing incident, and Hibiki's life was drastically changed forever. You wouldn't tell just by looking at her, though.
Yeah, and next up. But we'd like to mention she eventually joined the organization known as Song, the Squad of Nexus Guardians, known to combat the noise, including getting along and this is where the start of Hibiki's journey begins, considering she now inherited Gungnir's traits. Just waiting for it to catch up.
Yeah.
The stream.
Okay, next slide. Arsenal abilities we're on.
Yeah, so at first Gungnir's abilities for Kanade was for a spear, but for Hibiki's case, she just decided to change it to a different type of honored gear, as it's called. Basically just pure fists, and then we get to the specialty of the Symphogear. It's powered by phonic gain, which is a lot to explain, but in basic terms, the more you sing, the better you fight. And for Hibiki's case, this is no different, considering that her main fighting style is her gauntlets with power piston jacks, which give her an extra punch. And they can also turn into drills, claws, even rocket boosters to fly far distances and cushion long falls. And she has special attacks, which from an over the top martial artist. Thanks, Genjiro. But then we get to her two most notable things: the dice side, Gungnir's special trait, but the ability to slay godly divine beings, and the most powerful move used by Kanade, the Superb Song, which is basically
it's essentially a suicide move for the most part. Sometimes you're able to survive it, but that just takes a lot out of you if you're able to.
It's basically one big gamble. It's basically one big gamble where it's powerful in its own right, but if it backfires, it can be deadly results. And next slide. And this is only the extent of what Hibiki has at the start. Things get interesting. Ready?
Yeah, we're on. Next slide.
Okay, so now we get to her different forms, where she has a quite notable. First is the X Drive, which requires large amounts of gain from all the people in the world. And it basically allows her to fly, enhances her strikes, can shoot projectiles, and even comes with telepathy. But this isn't her most powerful form.
It's magical girls, what do you expect?
Next we get to the Ignite module. Created by a project by Elf9, this is basically what happens from Hibiki's basically a while back. Hibiki tended to go into a bit of a berserker state.
It's kind of due to the fact that the Gungnir was instead of being wielded normally like with Kanade, the shards were implanted right into her heart as a result of the incident. That pretty much put it in direct contact with her body and causing her to go into a pretty much a berserker state.
Thanks to Elf9 being Elf9, it was Hibiki's berserker thing was stored in a shard fragment of the villain Dinesleaf. And by fighting off the impulse at the start, this powers her up big time with a lot of fiery kick, in the literal sense, and comes with certain stages, exchanging offense for defense, and vice versa. But it also has a time limit that lowers each stage we go into. Now while this sounds good, unfortunately by the end of AXZ, she kinda lost the ability to use it. And which leads to and then we get into probably her two most powerful forms. First off, the Amalgam form. This, aided by the spirit of Saint Germain, this form starts off as a cocoon stage with a barrier until revealing its true power. This depends on the Synth users, but Hibiki just gains two gigantic gauntlet arms to attack with. And like a regular gauntlets, she can even use them as drills and rocket fists, and they can even detach and come back to her. That doesn't compare to the Burning X Drive, her strongest form yet. This basically being born from the song in her heart. And like the X Drive, this boosts her power by an incredible amount and gives her her two most strongest moves: Flameflower Comet Spear and Metanoia. And of course, with all this explanation, you might, next slide.
Next slide. Okay. Specific theme.
We get to the core specific theme of either character, which is basically cheerful young girls that, despite how others see them, struggle with depression and survivor skill caused by past events involving the sacrifice of another, Sumire, sister Cosme, and Kanebo, but put on a cheerful facade to hide it. Later on, having several bouts of dealing with their past, ultimately hold their heads up high with a bright smile on their face. Even having one person that was the closest to them, who manages to help them tether through the pain, the one thing that resolves them to continue further in life, namely Joker and Miku.
I'm sorry, what? Hatsune Miku?
Sadly, no.
Oh.
That's her name. Miku's her name.
Can
And here's some,
confirm.
yeah, it's like, and of course some bonus connections. Like first one's a bit of a first one might seem to feel like a bit filler, but I'd say it's a neat one. How they eventually join team with powers similar to their own, namely the Phantom Thieves and Song, and of course go up against dark creatures that threaten humanity with shadows and noise. And like
And of course, then there's the music. And of course, there's the big music theme with Sumire carrying on kind of Kasumi's dream of being a dancer, and Hibiki obviously being a singer because Symphogear.
and like this was an extra thing I wanted to add because like I watched with friends involving this, and we noticed a lot of interesting parallels between Persona 5 and Symphogear being. Wait, why are we inviting politics? There's a few more stuff you can add, but I'd say this is like the core enough theme for people to know. And next slide.
Okay, dynamic.
Okay, so at first you might think, oh wait, how is this supposed to work? This is Sword versus Fizz, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Especially, Sumire herself is capable of going up against plenty of physical foes. Namely, of course, the instance where she had to, alongside the other Phantom Thieves, she was able to block a massive punch from Maruki's evolved persona, Adam Cadmon. Hibiki, on the other hand, isn't so much the I need to punch as hard as possible, or I just need to punch a really hard person that you'd think she is. She may be headstrong, but that doesn't necessarily mean she can't be creative, especially when she has plenty of experiences facing against people with other kinds of weapons, like Chris Yukine, who primarily fights with projectiles, and her first partner, Tsubasa, an expert with a sword.
And my idea was, and of course for later on the fight, I had the idea of again having Sumire's persona evolve throughout the fight versus Hibiki's other forms, which might sound a bit weird to do, but again, my idea was a mix of rule of cool and again relegating to just Amalgam and X Drive since they're her two most strongest forms. Since again, Burning X Drive is more obviously powerful than X Drive, and she can't use the Ignite module anymore. And for Sumire's personas, my idea was the idea of it being like a confidant with like the episodes below of what I take inspiration from, namely with All Might versus Might Guy, with them being very complimenting, very supportive, and almost like a confidant, you could say. and of course Rojoko versus Giorno for obvious reasons. With the likes of Sephiroth versus Virgil and Tanjiro versus Jonathan Cho, a sword versus fist fight can very much work. And one last thing I would like to mention is that again, I'd say for a mix of the fight, show that Hibiki is a bit more Hibiki on the offense, while Sumire is on the defense, since Hibiki has more experience, while Sumire has shown to keep up a bit and show that she's able to keep up with Hibiki's more headstrong nature. Next slide.
Next slide. Okay. What neat stuff could be for?
Yeah, now we have the fight dynamic explained. Now here's the real meat and potatoes. So again, first the animation style, which again is a bit tricky. Which is a bit tricky to figure out first. But honestly, I think Moro would probably be my pick because I think he's shown enough that he can. I think the big thing for this would be someone who can mesh with all the personas, all the aesthetics, all the abilities, and Hibiki's other forms. But I'd be interested to see if someone else can work on this too.
Aesthetic really feels like the main thing for this matchup, especially. I'll get into that later.
Then we get to Sumire, and then we get to, of course, some of the fights. Again, I would love if the fight, again, show Hibiki has to start the first of being on the offense, say like she's parrying Sumire's rapier strikes while continuing to strike back, but Sumire has more of the defenses, elegantly dodging them. And of course, with her rapier and rifle skills. And like I'll go into this a little bit later, but a neat thing you could do is have some of their hits be in sync to the track I had in mind, but when things go up, things ramp up with Sumire's physical and blessed skills against Hibiki's more out there moves, and then of course when that's not working, and as mentioned before, it's a bit of a work to do this, but then we get to Vanities versus Amalgam, and again, And my idea was having Vanities and Sumire fight together, like a JoJo character, in their stand, you could say, against Hibiki's giant gauntlet. Showing Sumire is starting to keep up a bit, but Hibiki's made of tough stuff and still manages to push on through. And then we get to the climax, which involves things, like I said, involves things going a bit cosmic. And by that, like I said, and by that I mean Hibiki lands a bit hidden, and they both rocket to the moon while charging up to the big. And I will elaborate that yes, this might seem a bit over the top. This might seem a bit over the top by Persona standards, but again, I would like to mention some Persona attacks have known to stretch of the cosmos. The yelled about MRG fights getting an over the top feel, and again, Persona 5 in particular being very stylish and flashy. Hell, look at Strikers. I feel like this can definitely work well enough, especially. Then we get to, of course, the final clash with the big ones: Ella versus X Drive, Brave Step Gamble versus Superb Song Gamble, and a final clash between their strongest moves: Masquerade versus Flameflower Comet Spear, all while finding them in space. And the last thing I'd like to mention is you really need an emotional ending for this one. Again,
Absolutely. These aren't exactly characters that wants to go out and fight or just stuff like that. These two are empathetic to these two can be pretty empathetic to a fault, especially when you can have the dialogue start up being so friendly and supportive. But when it starts to ramp up, then they start to prove that they have what it takes so against what they've gone through, and how most importantly of all, how they will never give up. Ending things on a pretty bittersweet note, but a touching note as well.
Okay, next slide.
Now, here comes one of the most important aspects of the fight: music. I don't think I can stress how important this is, especially given the important fact that Symphogear fighters cannot fight unless they are really singing, let alone to their maximum point.
A big thing about Symphogear is eventually the more you sing from your heart, the more powerful you get. So this track really needs to emphasize that. But I'd say, of course, I would like to... with stuff like the reference chart and stuff like that here, I'd say the main motifs would be, I believe, for Persona side, and All Love's Blazing for Symphogear. But for cool extra stuff, I would like Colors Flying High and Rika Yodan. And also,
it needs vocals. It really needs vocals.
If you don't have a Symphogear track with vocals, what are you doing? But again, my idea was having it being an English and Japanese duet. My picks for them would be Sayose or this one neat, and of course, and this one artist I found online called Kurobane Asia, who's done English covers for Symphogear tracks. I think the big tricky one will be finding out who can do Japanese vocals, but I think there's enough work. And like I said, Brandon and Farrell have shown they can work with Symphogear and Persona, namely Symphonic Eruption and Pierce the Boot for Symphogear side, and Requiem for a Thief and Chains of Cognition for Persona side. And
it's really a gamble as to whether or not who gets the track. Really, I don't think there's any specific preferences to who.
Have it be very high melodic, high energy, with a little mix of techno. Oh, and you need to go hard on the guitars too.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to the vocals, and again, idea was not just the track to have vocals, but for the fight to have vocals. And again, since there's the whole music theme with Sumire being a dancer and Hibiki from Symphogear, and this could work in Sumire's dream of taking the gymnastics performance world. Oh, you could have this be one hell of a performance too. And Symphogear has a lot of idol performances, so it feels fitting. And again, I say have the track be very momentum rhythm based. Have some of the clashes in sync with the track, which relates to this part, the aesthetics.
That's pretty much one of the most important parts of this fight specifically. They need to. It can really go hard on it if they can.
I mentioned, this is from a while ago. Mentioned by someone else, but I want to say here. You know the icons that you use to represent Persona social stats in Persona 5? It's those music notes pop up. Imagine anything music related Hibiki does is accompanied by that. Or hell, you know how the Phantoms are sometimes animated with a streak of color behind them when they run? Imagine either of them dotting around the environment with that, but shaped like the lines of on a music sheet with those notes lining them. So you can even do something of a full-blown music aesthetic, all this on top of the music potential too.
Yeah, Death Battle has been wanting to do a music-based episode for a while. I think this might just fill that niche.
Alright, next slide.
Promo arts and thumbnails.
Is it up?
Yep.
Yeah, I would like to give a very since this idea has shown that people can get really creative with a lot of the thumbnails for it.
I always noticed it with this idea
And I will-
specifically, with how these people
And
can
I
just
would
be
like-
so creative with the thumbnails and how much the colors pop the renders. It just works.
And again, I would like to give a shout out to these two, and I would like to give a shout out to, of course, all the thumbnails, but also the bottom ones with all the sprite art, with all the art made by Nitrox, Shiraku, Nodman, and that guy right there. And of course, an extra thing with Jack's trailer, since I would very much give it a recommendation. And now,
Thank you very much.
And now with that all thing, just one more thing, just one more, then the last slide. And
Last slide. And the one last thing.
which, yeah, the one last thing, and of course, with how I think this could work as an episode. Symphogear is still a relatively niche anime in terms of being mainstream, but one thing I definitely noticed is that it has a huge following in this community. So it def has attention.
And of course, Persona being Persona, Sumire being from the stupid popular Persona 5, and obviously people still wanting more Persona on the show. Joker pretty much gave him a taste for more, and coupling it with Symphogear could possibly interest more people into the other series itself, giving it a possible attention spike. And obviously, music theme episode Symphogear. Hello.
And for those who saying, oh, can Sumire carry? Would like to remind, she's practically one of the most popular Persona 5 characters. She's practically the face of Royal herself, and from a friend actually suggested this. Fun fact: did you know there was a leak back then for her getting in Smash? I linked it right here. Not even joking. There was a likely chance she could have been in Smash. In which case, if she is that notable enough to get in, I say she can carry. And of course, last but not least, for the crew, I would recommend listening to these Symphogear songs to help set in the mood. Help set in the mood for what you might think of it.
And that's pretty much our presentation.
Be that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna check real quick, see if anyone asks questions in the chat.
Okay, looking at the chat right now.
I see no questions so far.
No questions so far.
Well, nah, I guess you guys want to end it here.
May as well.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
You guys did really well on that pitch. Really well.